August 1997, Kensington Palace. Royal staff are tearing through Princess Diana's private office like their careers depend on it, because they do. Security finds 127 white envelopes hidden in a locked drawer. Each envelope contains exactly £500 in cash. That's £63,500 with zero documentation, zero official charity records, zero explanation. Each envelope is addressed to nobody, just street names and park locations scrawled in Diana's handwriting. Her butler, Burrell, refuses to explain. Palace advisors are in full panic mode. This isn't protocol violation. This is potential fraud. The Metropolitan Police are called. Burrell's only statement: she called them her walking angels. The envelopes sit there in stacks next to Diana's personal checkbook, each one sealed with the palace crest. The public knows Diana as the people's princess. But this was something else entirely. Where did the money go? Who were these angels? And why did the palace try so hard to erase this story? To understand what they found in that drawer, you have to go back to 1991. Diana was already the most famous woman on earth, married to Prince Charles, mother to two princes, photographed everywhere she went. Her official charity work was impeccable. Hospital visits, fundraising galas, speeches about compassion. The palace controlled every detail of her public life. But in the spring of 1991, something changed. Diana was leaving Buckingham Palace after a formal dinner when she saw a homeless woman sitting against the palace gates. The woman was holding a cardboard sign. Diana stopped. Security tried to move her along. She ignored them. That night, back at Kensington Palace, Diana pulled £500 in cash from her personal account and sealed it in a white envelope with the palace crest. No note, no name, just cash. The next morning, she drove herself back to those gates. The woman was still there. Diana handed her the envelope and drove away before anyone could photograph it. That was envelope number 1. Nobody knew it then, but Diana had just started something she couldn't stop. By spring 1994, Diana had a system. Every Monday and Thursday morning, she told her security detail she was going for a drive, alone. They hated it, but she was still technically a royal. She had leverage. Her routes never varied randomly. Hyde Park Corner, Waterloo Bridge, Victoria Station. She'd memorized the faces. A woman named Mary at Victoria Station. Asthma medication her government benefits didn't cover. Thomas at Waterloo, trying to scrape together money for job interview clothes. Sarah with 2 children near Hyde Park. School supplies, winter coats, things the welfare office said weren't emergencies. Diana kept £500 in cash in her study desk drawer at all times. She'd seal each envelope personally, white paper, palace crest pressed into red wax, no signature. Her butler, Burrell, watched this happen twice a week for 3 years. He never asked questions. She never explained. "If anyone asks," she told him once, "you don't know anything." He nodded. That was the deal. Diana's sons, William and Harry, were at school during her morning runs. They never knew their mother was operating an underground welfare system with her own money. In late 1995, things got complicated. Commander Patrick Jeffson, Diana's chief of staff, started noticing patterns. Security logs showed unexplained stops during her morning drives. 23 stops in 6 weeks, each lasting 5 to 8 minutes. Jeffson wrote a formal memo. Unaccompanied movements pose significant security risk and potential protocol violations. The memo landed on the desk of Diana's private secretary. Meetings were held. Concerns were raised about improper conduct. The word affair was whispered in palace corridors, because what else would explain secret meetings at random London locations? Diana found the memo in her office mail one Tuesday morning. She read it twice, then locked it in the same drawer where she kept the cash. She continued the envelope system, 3 times a week now, sometimes 4. She knew they were watching. She didn't care. The security logs from that period show 58 unexplained stops between September and December 1995. Each stop was a person. Each person had a name. Each name was written in a small notebook Diana kept in her desk, coded with initials, dates, and amounts. Here's what the palace didn't understand. Diana wasn't being reckless. She was being methodical. Her personal checking account showed cash withdrawals of £2,000 to £3,000 every month, far more than any princess needed for shopping. Where was it going? Palace accountants flagged the pattern in November 1995, but couldn't prove anything improper. Diana had her own income from her family trust. She could spend it however she wanted. The notebook they'd eventually find after her death told the real story. Mary, Victoria Station, 500, asthma inhaler and prescription costs. Thomas, Waterloo, 500, suit for interview at construction firm. Sarah, Hyde Park, 500, winter coats for Emma, age 7, and Michael, age 5. By late 1995, Diana had distributed more than £45,000 in personal funds over 4 years. 0 official charity structure, 0 tax deductions, 0 credit for humanitarian work. This overlapped perfectly with her marriage falling apart, the Panorama interview scandal, and the palace trying to control every aspect of her public image. But they couldn't control this, because they didn't know about it. Fall 1995, right after the Panorama interview. Diana sat in that BBC studio and told Martin Bashir there were 3 people in this marriage. 23 million people watched. The palace was in crisis mode. Diana's every move was scrutinized, which is exactly when palace officials decided to investigate those security logs more carefully. A private secretary was assigned to track Diana's movements discreetly. No formal surveillance, just observation. Diana sensed it immediately. She started changing her routes, decoy trips to shops she never entered, sudden turns, parking in different locations and walking the final blocks. She'd check her rearview mirror constantly, pull over, wait, watch. If anyone was following, they'd have to reveal themselves. Nobody did, officially, but Diana knew. "They think I'm meeting someone," she told Burrell one evening. "Let them think that." It was easier than explaining the truth, that she was spending her own money to solve problems the government ignored, that she'd memorized the names and needs of 31 people across London, that every envelope was meticulously tracked in a coded notebook they'd never think to search for. The notebook was small, leather-bound, black, kept in the bottom drawer of her desk, under old letters. Diana's handwriting filled every page. Not names, initials, not addresses, locations. M.W., Vic, 500, Meds, 312.94. T.H., Watt, 500, Job Clothes, 415.94. S.P., H.P., 500, School Supplies, 520.94. 89 entries by the end. Each entry represented a person Diana had met, memorized, and returned to help. The investigators, looking at her suspicious behavior, thought they were tracking an affair, some kind of secret relationship, maybe blackmail. The real story was simpler and more impossible. Diana had built a personal welfare system because she couldn't stand watching people suffer outside palace gates while she lived in luxury. No press releases, no photo opportunities, no charity credit, just cash in white envelopes with the palace seal, handed directly to people who needed it. The investigators never figured it out. How could they? Who investigates a princess for being too generous with her own money? The irony was brutal. While they watched for scandal, they missed the most radical thing Diana ever did, which was simply treating struggling people like human beings who deserved help without bureaucracy or judgment. January 1996. Paul Burrell was called into a meeting with palace officials. They didn't accuse him of anything, they just asked questions. Had he noticed anything unusual about Diana's routines? Any unexplained absences? Any financial irregularities? Burrell sat there in his butler's uniform and said absolutely nothing useful. Her Royal Highness maintains her schedule as appropriate. The officials tried again. Had she mentioned meeting anyone privately? Had Burrell witnessed any cash handling? He smiled politely. I'm sorry, I couldn't say. After the meeting, he returned to Kensington Palace and found Diana in her study. 23 white envelopes sat on her desk, already sealed. They asked about you, he said. Diana looked up. What did you tell them? Nothing. She studied his face for a long moment. If they fire you over this, I'll take care of you. Burrell picked up the stack of envelopes. I know. That was the moment the palace realized they'd lost. Diana was too popular. Any scandal would backfire. Any attempt to control her would look cruel. So they backed off, watched from a distance, documented everything, and waited for her to make a mistake. She never did. Not the kind they wanted anyway. Diana's divorce from Prince Charles was finalized in July 1996. She lost the title Her Royal Highness, but kept her apartments at Kensington Palace. What nobody anticipated, losing her formal royal status, made Diana more determined, not less. She'd spent 15 years inside palace protocol. Now she had freedom, and she was going to use it. The envelope system accelerated. Instead of twice a week, she went out 4 times a week. Instead of £500 per person monthly, she started distributing £500 weekly to her regular recipients. By summer 1996, Diana was cycling through 31 people on a rotating schedule. Her personal checking account was running dangerously low. Her financial advisor noticed and called her. Your Highness. I'm not Your Highness anymore, she interrupted, and I know exactly what I'm doing. She did know. She was spending her family trust money faster than it replenished, because she'd decided personal wealth meant nothing if you didn't use it to solve real problems for real people. The palace watched her checkbook balance drop and assumed she was being careless with money after the divorce. They had no idea she was funding an underground support network. August 30th, 1997, one day before Paris, Diana sat at her desk at Kensington Palace and sealed 8 white envelopes, £500 in each one, £4,000 total. She wrote locations on the outside in her neat handwriting: Victoria Station, Waterloo Bridge, Hyde Park Corner, Charing Cross. She called Paul Burrell into her study. I'm going to Paris tomorrow, she said. If something happens, if anything happens, deliver these personally. Burrell looked at the envelopes. Nothing's going to happen. Just promise me. He promised. Diana handed him the 8th envelope. On the outside, she'd written, Sarah, school uniform, September. This was Diana's 412th personal delivery since 1991. She'd distributed £67,500 of her own money over 6 years to 89 people whose names most of Britain would never know. No press coverage, no palace approval, no charity foundation taking credit. Just cash in white envelopes sealed with the palace crest, handed directly to people who needed help immediately. The next night, Diana died in a car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. She was 36 years old. Paul Burrell was left holding 8 envelopes he'd promised to deliver. In the days after Diana's death, Kensington Palace became a war zone of grief and logistics. Burrell moved through the chaos in shock, organizing Diana's personal effects while the world mourned outside the gates. That's when he found the notebook. Black leather, bottom drawer, under letters she'd saved from her sons. He opened it and saw the coded entries. 89 names, or rather 89 sets of initials with locations and amounts. He cross-referenced them with the 8 sealed envelopes she'd left with him. This wasn't random charity. This was a system, a network, a secret operation Diana had been running for 6 years without anyone knowing the full scope. Burrell sat in Diana's empty study and did the math. £500 per envelope. 89 recipients tracked in the notebook. Some visited once, some visited monthly for years. Total distributed, at least £67,500 from her personal funds. No official charity structure, no administrative costs, no publicity. Diana had funded an entire underground welfare system while the palace thought she was just making her morning drives. The notebook also included photographs, 23 of them tucked between pages, faces Diana had memorized, people she'd helped who would never know their anonymous benefactor was the most famous woman in the world. September 1997, 1 week after Diana's funeral. The royal family met privately to discuss what to do about Paul Burrell's discovery, the notebook, the envelopes, the pattern of cash distributions over 6 years. One advisor suggested revealing it publicly, proof of Diana's genuine compassion beyond the cameras. Another advisor shut that down immediately. It raises questions about oversight, about protocol violations, about where £67,000 went with zero documentation. The decision was made quickly: bury it. Maintain Diana's dignity by keeping the secret system secret. Let her be remembered for her official charity work. Don't complicate the narrative with stories about unmarked cash and coded notebooks. Paul Burrell sat in his quarters at Kensington Palace with 8 white envelopes Diana had asked him to deliver. He thought about the promise he'd made. He thought about what the palace wanted him to do. Then he got up, put on his coat, and walked to Hyde Park. The first envelope was marked Sarah, School Uniform, September. He delivered it personally, just as Diana had asked. Over the next 2 weeks, Burrell delivered all 8 envelopes to their intended recipients. The palace never knew, or if they knew, they never said anything. The recipients started coming forward in the 2000s. Sarah was first in 2005. She told Channel 4 that in September 1997, weeks after Diana's death, a man she'd never met handed her an envelope with £500 and said, "This is from Princess Diana. She wanted you to have it for your daughter's school uniforms." Sarah thought it was a sick joke. Then she saw the palace seal on the envelope. By 2007, 12 recipients had been identified by journalists piecing together Burrell's memoir and their own investigation. The pattern became clear. Diana hadn't been randomly helping homeless people. She'd been solving specific, immediate problems. Asthma medication a mother couldn't afford. Job interview clothes for a man trying to get off the streets. Winter coats for children whose parents were surviving on government benefits that didn't stretch far enough. Thomas came forward in 2010. The £500 Diana gave him in 1994 paid for the suit he wore to a construction job interview. He got the job. He'd been employed ever since. "I never knew it was her," he said. "I thought it was just an anonymous donor." That was the point. Diana wanted to help people, not publicize helping people. Paul Burrell published his memoir in 2003. He revealed the envelope system, the coded notebook, the 6 years of secret cash deliveries Diana had run while the palace thought she was just taking morning drives. The book caused controversy. Some accused Burrell of betraying Diana's trust by revealing her private actions. Others said he was finally showing the world who Diana really was when cameras weren't watching. The final count was clear: 412 envelopes over 6 years, £500 each on average, £67,500 total, which equals roughly £150,000 in today's money, all from Diana's personal funds. Zero official recognition. When Diana's personal effects were auctioned years later, they included the small black notebook and unsigned personal checks she'd cashed for her envelope system. One white envelope was preserved in a memorial collection at Althorpe, her family estate. The envelope is empty now. The palace seal is still visible, pressed into red wax, just as Diana had sealed them 412 times. The weight of that empty envelope isn't measured in paper, it's measured in lives, changed when nobody was watching. Real charity is what you do when nobody's watching, and nobody will ever know.